Welcome to Trillium Healing Arts Peercast. I'm Julia Wolf, energy healer and transformative life coach. In these episodes, I sit down with members of the greater healing community to talk about ways to facilitate our growth, evolve into our true selves, and manifest our dreams. Here, we dive into the art of healing. Today's conversation is with Theresa Gleeson. As a psychotherapist, she has worked with the dream world for decades. In this episode, we talk about dreams, their healing powers, and how to develop a relationship with them to gain insight into our lives. I am so excited to have you here today, Theresa.
I'm excited to be here too, Julia.
We're here today to talk about the healing arts, and in particularly dreams and how the dream world walks with us and how dreaming is healing. But before we dive into that, tell me a little bit about yourself and your experience in the dream world.
Okay. I remember having dreams. I remember dreams from when I was a kid, not that many, but there are a few big ones I remember. And as you know, I'm a psychotherapist. I just recently retired, but I've worked as a psychotherapist and actually went back to school and got a doctorate in ministry with a program that studies the wisdom cultures of the world. And that, when I started doing that program, that really keyed me into dreaming because I took a class with Jeremy Taylor, who is one of the big people in dreaming. And
he is the one who coined projective dream work?
Yes, projective group dream work.
Okay.
So, yes, and he's written, I don't know, half a dozen books. He died a few years ago. He was wonderful. So I had a week with him and probably 22 other people of many hours a day working dreams. So that really tuned me in a lot to how powerful dreams could be. Although I knew they were powerful, learning what are the different ways that different cultures have thought about dreams, and what is a way that we can work with dreams that it helps the community, or that there is a community component to dreaming. Now, as a psychotherapist living in Vermont, it's really hard to do groups living in rural Vermont. So I've done a few projective dream groups since I took the class, but I've more or less taken Jeremy's work and other work that I've read. And I'm not going to be able to come up with the names. You know the name of the
Robert Moss.
You and I have talked about. And then there have been just so many writings over the years from different wisdom traditions, including Christianity, that talk about how to work with dreams. And so I've more or less used it for the past 15 years, 20 years with individuals within my office. And I still respect, with projective group dreaming, one of the dream work, what you always respectfully proceed any thought you have about a dream that somebody tells you is, if it were my dream.
Yes.
Right?
And you and I have done that a number of times, and I find that so helpful. And the reason I find that so helpful is because I will analyze my dream, and I will find that this dream, really means something. But you and I have talked about some of my dreams like years later, and you give me a new perspective. And it just shows how dreams can be healing over time, and they give us information like forever.
Yes, they do. Jeremy always said there are so many layers to dreaming, and yes, they may mean different things to you at different times in your life. You can always get information out of your dream, which is a really good reason to keep a dream journal, so that you can always go back over it and say, oh my gosh, what was that saying? Or, I dreamt that? Wow. And now that's happened, so yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's very exciting. And I find another thing that really helps is to talk about your dreams. Yes. And my partner and I, very often, first thing in the morning, it's like, so did you have any dreams last night? And we will, mirror each other's dreams.
Yes.
And sometimes it's a very powerful experience. And other times it's like, well, whatever that means. Yeah. But I think talking about it, like writing about it, like puts it somewhere in your brain where you can call it up later.
Or you could call it honoring the dream. And when you honor your dreams, you tend to have more of them. Or you're right, it just works away on you and more information eventually comes to you from it, I think. So, but you have to honor them.
Speaking of honoring dreams, I sometimes, in a difficult time in my life, as I go to bed at night, I will ask, as I call it, the dream maker. I say, dream maker, please send me a dream. Help me, give me information. What am I missing? What do I need to know? And sometimes it really works.
Yes. There's all kinds of traditions. I can't even remember which cultures anymore because it's been so long, but there's all kinds of traditions that have different ways of, for example, in Christianity, it would be praying to have a dream that will guide you in, I think that's the one that comes to mind first, but there are lots of ways of preparing yourself as you go to bed to just ask for a dream, right?
Yeah.
And then you get the information you need, because one way of thinking about it is, the way I always like to explain it is, it comes from our deepest wisdom place. You could say it comes from our unconscious, the collective unconscious. There's many different ways of thinking about it, but I always think about it as dreams come from our place of deepest wisdom, wherever that is for us. And so that place of deepest wisdom is always waiting there for us to dive in, and it's very easy for us to gain access to that in our dreams.
Yes, I often hear you talk about the well of wisdom.
Yeah.
And there are many ways to dip into that well, and the dream world is only one way.
Yes.
Yeah. And there are also many ways to interpret dreams. And I think it was Carl Jung who talked a lot about the symbology and the archetypical aspects of dreams. But what other ways are there to interpret dreams?
I am such a follower of Jeremy Taylor that I look at what he said, which is the only person who really knows what the dream means is the person who dreamed it, the dreamer. And how we help each other in group dream work is that there is a collective unconscious. And so if I'm listening to your dream, the first thing that's happened, I'm immediately projecting, because that's what we do as human beings, is we project. So I'm listening to your dream, it immediately becomes my dream. And, Jeremy used to say, okay, I'm projecting all over you. And I thought, I always like that. But only the dreamer really knows what that dream means. But we can help each other, because when I'm projecting, I'm also giving you some information that may hit home for you. As long as I'm honoring myself and honoring you and respecting you enough to say, this is what it meant to me, then I can give you as much information, and you can accept that as the dreamer, or say, no, it doesn't. I've sat in lots of dream groups where people say, no, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Or other times people will say, whoa, that is right on. I never thought of that. And of course, the dream worker who has given the tidbit, your ego gets a nice little hit when that happens. But, the warning is, don't go for that. Just continue to remember that you're projecting all over that person when you tell them what that dream means. But you also are learning about yourself, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Many cultures have talked about how one person's dream is the dream for the community.
Yes.
And so if I've had a dream and I tell you my dream and it resonates with you and it gives you a lesson, you see a lesson in this.
Yes.
That dream has become powerful for you, even though you didn't have the dream.
Yes. there are also lots of ways that people talk about interpreting dreams too. So there are books of things, and even Jeremy had a couple of guidelines. Like, I'm trying to remember one right now. One really big one that he always said: generally, when you have a dream where death is involved, you're dying, someone else is dying, it usually means there's a rebirth coming. Right. So I think that's so great. So there are some general things like that you will learn as you work in dream groups that often come up that, oh yeah, it is about a rebirth when there was a death dream, right?
Yeah.
You look like you know about that.
Well, yeah, that's where my healing story began, with a dream. Mm-hmm. And that's why you and I are sitting here first as I retell my healing story. And I had a dream where I was consumed. I was eaten by a pack of wolves. Mm-hmm. And I watched myself get torn apart, and my winter parka and snowshoes get strewn around. Mm-hmm. And that was a very powerful dream, obviously. But it was also, I've learned with working with dream work that it's important to note your emotional or physical state when you wake up from a dream. So when I woke up from that dream, yes, my heart was racing, only for a moment. And then the first thought that went through my mind was, that's not a bad way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so not only was the death powerful, but the response to the death. And that's when I took a look at my life and said, it's got to change. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was the beginning of my first labor pain.
Yes, that's right. So interpreting dreams. Let's just stay loose with it. When you're with a group, or even with a couple, or with a friend, or even with yourself, I find that if you let yourself relax, do a little meditation. For me, even reading books that are metaphorical stories helps loosen me up, because you begin to, the symbol language comes differently for you. Mm-hmm. And so when
Theresa Estes.
I love reading her books before doing dream work, because she speaks so metaphorically, right? And so it just loosens me up in some way, and I feel like I'm more open to what might that dream mean to me, what might that dream mean to somebody else.
Yes, yes. Dreams are very often very metaphorical.
Yes.
And what I've noticed is that the events of my day will come up in my dreams. Mm-hmm. And because I'll say like, oh, well, I know why so-and-so was in my dream. Mm-hmm. I'm not really dreaming about Jane, but I saw Jane at the co-op this morning.
Yes.
But the message Jane brings in the dream is what's important.
She's the dream Jane. That's how I always distinguish it. Oh, there's Jane I saw at the co-op. She's in my dream now. This is Dream Jane.
Yeah, so she, it's like, the memory of the day kind of, it gets relived, but then you get these underlying messages, or these gifts of wisdom that are coming through the day. Yes. And but as far as metaphors go, the dream world very often is metaphorical. That, and sometimes I think it has a sense of humor.
Oh, absolutely. We always talk about, when you're having a dream, look at the puns in the dream, because it's so often that we get our dreams in puns. I mean, we have a sense of humor as human beings, and it comes in our dreams, and it's such a great way to learn.
I had this very interesting dream, which has just popped into my head. And the dream came the night before my father was having bilateral knee replacement, which I was very concerned about, being a physical therapist, all the regular concerns. Anything that could go wrong, I'm like afraid is going to happen. So that night, I have a dream that I'm leaving my clinic to go get something. And I get in a big rocking chair, and I back out of the parking spot, and I rock my way down a hill to the bottom of the hill. I go into a pharmacy, pick something up, and I come out, get back in my rocking chair, and I start rocking back up the hill. And then flying over the hill comes this little tiny car with people too big for the car, and they look like Cheech and Chong. Do you remember Cheech and Chong? Yes. They look like Cheech and Chong. And they come flying down, and they're looking at me menacingly, and I'm just rocking my way up the hill, and I'm looking at them, and I go to the right, and the car goes to the right, and I go to the left, and the car goes to the left, and I quick swerve to the right again, and the car passes me. And I think, oh, good, dodged that one. And I woke up feeling like Dad's going to be fine.
That's great. Here's what I was thinking, if it were my dream. First of all, the thing I was thinking about was how so often we get, I started thinking, oh, there must be some physical therapy thing that has to do with rocking that gave you a solution, that you were going to give your dad some advice. If it were my dream, I would be thinking, oh, what's the motion that my dad needs to do, right? Because a lot of times our dreams do give us actual physical healing messages, what we need to do, because we're just such creative human beings that information comes to us in our dreams when we're relaxed. The other thing I was thinking about was how madcap it was, Cheech and Chong and their little, so if it were my dream, why are these madcap guys following me? Is it just to bring my attention to this, the rocking chair, bring more attention to it, emphasize it? So that's where my thinking went.
That's great. Mm-hmm. That's great. I love that. I do love that. And interesting, I very often would put my knee replacement patients in a rocking chair as they had their ice at the end of the session, just to get that continual little bit of movement. So that's interesting. I never made that connection before.
If it were my dream, I would always think I have a connection to the rocking chair and how nurturing that is. Mm-hmm. And if it were my dream, I'd think, oh, I really want to nurture my dad during this time, right?
Yeah. So that's great. Back to Jeremy Taylor. I think he's been quoted to say, dreams come in the service of health and wholeness.
Yes, always. That's
always.
Okay. All dreams come in the service of our own health and wholeness, or our community's health and wholeness. That's like a bottom line there. Even now, what people usually say is, what about nightmares? Are these really scary dreams? Are those really helping my health? I wake up, my heart beating. Yes, because nightmares is always the big question. What the heck are nightmares all about? It's our deepest wisdom saying, pay attention. I want you to, they're shaking us, saying, listen, I have something really important to say to you. And they come for our health and healing. They're not they're not necessarily to scare us, although they do, and that's fine. That's just an affect to take note of. Why was I scared? What was scared? What was the fear? That's something we can think about, right? Because we always do think about our
Absolutely. And there's a trick with that too, especially if there's some sort of a recurring nightmare or theme mm-hmm. in a nightmare. And I will often recommend to my clients that next time you have that dream, rather than pulling yourself out of it and shaking yourself and going back to sleep, allow yourself to go back into it. And instead of running away from this scary thing, turn around and talk to it and ask it, or him or her, or ask, what do I need to know?
That's great. That's a great technique. And that's something that I think psychotherapists use too, is that, and you can do this actually, you can walk the person through it. Let's go through your dream. Close your eyes, relax, talk to me about your dream. When I'm here with you, whatever helpers you want with you, it's all of this is in your magnificent sacred imagination or your deepest wisdom, or however you talk about it. But know that right now, right here, we can go through that dream. And when we come to that scary spot, we're here, I can talk you through that, and let's figure out what that is. Let's look at it a little bit more closely. And people do this all the time. It's an easy thing to do because you close your eyes, you can go back to that dream if you want to. Sometimes it's so frightening that people say, no, I can't do it. Okay, that's okay. When you're ready, you'll do that. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But that's a great technique that you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, and the psyche is not always ready to process whatever that is. And I'll often use drumming in the yurt. Yeah. I will, like you just said, a person gets in a relaxed position. We start in a very prayerful way to call in helping spirits, and might be one of their deceased relatives or what have you. And we go back into the dream, and then I use drumming to help them drop down out of their thinking mind, so they can feel, or so that they can listen to what I call listen to your heart rather than your ego.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes. And very often people will come out of this kind of trance-like state from the drumming, and they'll go, I know what that monster is representing.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's really helpful, I know for myself and for other people that I've worked with as well, is to, as you go into the dream, find a helper to go with you.
Yes.
Right? Because you just feel so much, find a really stable, steady, whoever that may be, whatever spirit or person that may be, take someone with you because you're not alone. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have had several conversations with you, and you often talk about yourself as being a bridger. Mm-hmm. You have, like you mentioned earlier in your introduction, you have your work in theology, and ministry. And but tell me, what do you mean by bridging?
So bridging, it's really, I think it's about staying open. Always staying open, and bridging is about connecting. How do I connect to somebody else? And, if I'm coming from one wisdom tradition and you're coming from another one, you can bet our languages may be different, but we have commonalities because it is one river, many wells. And so how do you bridge differences in language, differences in symbols, in respectful, honoring ways? So I think bridging is connecting.
Yes, that's beautiful, beautiful. And I think when it comes to the dream world, it's important to be able to be open to an infinite amount of possibilities, and to be willing to look at the dream from a different perspective, which could be so outside of our own that's what the dream's all about. It's so often a dream is trying to get me. I can only speak about my own, really, but the dream is trying to get me to see something from a different vantage point.
Yes.
I have been visited in dreams by deceased relatives in the spirit world. I've been visited by dreams by people with religious meaning, such as Mother Mary, and I've been visited in dreams by what I would call an animal spirit, and these all come from different traditions.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. So it's important to be open.
There's so many languages, right? And I think that's what I feel like I have to always keep open to that. What language is that person speaking, right? That person is speaking from the language of Buddhism. That person is speaking the language of Christianity. That person is speaking the language of earth-based spirituality. You just listen for the languages, right?
Yes.
And what you find when you listen to the languages is that you just have to interpret it, right? And say, okay, in my language, that's this. Okay, I don't have to correct them. That's their language, right? So,
right, exactly. Yeah. So bridging, and I see where you come up with the term bridging now. It's connection.
Yes.
And and that's really, really, really important. In working with people, whether it's in psychotherapy or in transformative life coaching or at a dinner party.
Yes.
So this has been wonderful, Theresa, but it's about time for us to wrap this up. So maybe before we say our goodbyes, you could share with us a little bit about how to start a dream practice. I've had many people tell me, but I never dream, and we all dream. So do you have any ideas or tips, pointers in working with our dreams?
How do you remember your dreams?
How do I remember mine?
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm a very powerful dreamer. I mean, I wake up and I can still see them. I can still feel them. And I've also developed a relationship with them in the sense of I often call upon them.
Yes. But you've developed a relationship with them is what you said. So that is really, that's a practice, I think, is to begin to develop a relationship with your dreams or your deepest wisdom. And so, I think any kind of meditation or mindfulness practice helps you, and maybe before bed. I can't meditate before bed because I'll just fall asleep, but some people like that. But having a regular meditation or mindfulness practice helps you get into the realm of dreams, whatever time of day. But then again, it's about honoring and developing a relationship with your dreams. So every major dream worker says, keep a dream journal. And sometimes, like I think Jeremy Taylor kept a dream journal every single night. I'm not that good, I have to tell you. But some people do. So, and a lot of people find that honoring it again, making a beautiful, coloring the cover, getting a beautiful book to keep your dreams in. And I now tell people, keep your phone, you don't want to have your phone by your bed, really. But if you have your phone near and you wake up, if you're like me, if I wake up and write my dream down right then, I won't go back to sleep. So sometimes if you can sometimes, there's two things you can do. You can just have a little piece of paper and a pen by your bed, and you can kind of in your sleep, I've done this, you can write as you're just on that edge, write a couple notes about the dream, a couple words that will bring it back to you. Or you can have your phone and you can say a couple of words into your phone. That's kind of my recommendation. Some people get pens with lights on them so that if they wake up during the night from a dream, they can write it down. It's mainly, you want to recall it when you wake up in the morning if you've had it in the middle of the night. Often dreams come at the very end of your sleep cycle, and so they're right there. But write them down, because I know I've regretted so many times when I didn't write. I thought, oh God, I'll remember this one. Nope.
Yes, that's happened to me too. It's like, there's no way I'm going to forget this one. Next morning, it's like, I remember having a dream that I didn't think I was going to forget.
Yes.
And why? Because that was that conscious aspect.
Yes.
So,
yes, that's right.
Another trick I've used is instead of saying, I won't forget that, I'll say, remember the river and the turquoise water and the iceberg and the family picnicking, and then I'll go back to sleep.
Yes.
And then excellent. I actually do remember that, even though all the details, and then the details come back.
Yes, that's right. Because the detail, and even one of the things that's so interesting about working a dream in a group, or even by yourself or with a partner, is you can have just those few words and work the dream from there. It's amazing. Somebody said, I just had this dream. There was a crow flying overhead, and I can't remember the rest of it. Let's work with that. And there's a lot of information there. The other thing you can do to honor your dreams, keep a journal. So later, write it down, write your few notes and then write it down. And there's a little acronym, TAQH, that you can use that I always recommend to people after you've written your dream down. T is for title. Give it a title, give it a date so that you know when you dreamed it, because this may be important as you review your journals later. A, affect. What was your affect as you were dreaming? Q, question. Was this dream asking a question of me? And H, oh my gosh, I've forgotten the H, TAQH.
Is this from Robert Moss?
I don't know.
Because he would say, is it something you should act on, or is it something that's predictive?
No, this isn't Robert Moss. This has got something I got from a book, dream book, years and years ago. And I can't remember what the H, but you know what? If you get the TAQ, that probably gives you a lot.
Exactly. Yeah. Naming the dream, and really important, like I said earlier, is how was I feeling?
Yes.
How was I feeling? That's a huge part of it.
Yes.
And then, as Robert Moss would say, is this something that could potentially come true?
Yes.
Or is this something that you seem to have to act on? And even though it's not the exact thing that happened in the dream,
yes,
but it's like, oh, you wake up and in this dream, you failed the exam, or you showed up because school dreams are so common.
Yes.
You show up for the exam and you remembered you forgot to study. Well, what is that telling you? It's like, ooh, my insurance premium is due.
Yes. Right. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So Robert Moss is great he has all kinds of books and all kinds of questions that you can ask yourself that are really great. And you can use those, read those, or do those in your dream journals. So, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
This has been wonderful.
I know. This has been fun. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Okay.
Anytime. If you want more information about this episode, visit us on the web at theyurt@trillium.com and click on the Peercast tab. A special thanks to Steve Devoni for the production of this Peercast. Thank you for joining me, and may our paths cross again.